Kunti, the queen of Hastinapur, lost her grip. Her infant son suddenly plummeted toward a solid boulder below. But when the dust cleared, the baby was completely unharmed. The rock, however, had shattered into 1,000 pieces. This infant was Bhima. He inherited the genetics of his father, Vayudev, the wind god. This divine lineage gave him a physical density and durability that completely defied human biology. Growing up in the royal court meant Bhima was constantly surrounded by his family, specifically his cousins, the 100 Kaurava brothers, who shared the exact same palace and the exact same claim to the throne. Royal succession is usually determined by birth order or political maneuvering, but Bhima introduced a completely different variable. You had a single demigod living among normal human heirs, making standard physical competitions completely lopsided. His physical power bypassed the usual rules of court politics. As long as Bhima was in the room, he presented an active physical threat to the Kauravas' ability to patrol the kingdom. To see how this played out, look at their daily routine in the royal training grounds. The princes spent their early years learning combat side by side in the dirt. During hand-to-hand wrestling matches, Bhima would regularly take on multiple Kaurava brothers at once. He tossed them around casually, overpowering them without any refined technique, leaving them bruised in front of their instructors. For the eldest Kaurava, Duryodhana, these daily public defeats were intolerable. Every time he hit the ground, his normal sibling rivalry morphed into deep, festering resentment. Duryodhana saw himself as the future king. To him, sovereignty required absolute dominance. Being physically manhandled by his cousin meant he looked weak, and a weak prince could not project the authority required to rule Hastinapur. The architecture of the palace might have been vast, but it simply couldn't contain both Bhima's raw physical superiority and Duryodhana's fragile ego. The tension reached a breaking point. The breaking point came during a water sports festival on the banks of the river Ganges. The atmosphere was celebratory, relaxed, and completely devoid of the usual palace guards. Duryodhana used this distraction to execute a highly calculated conspiracy. He moved past childish resentment and began plotting a lethal, methodical assassination. He targeted his cousin's one known weakness, his massive appetite. Duryodhana isolated Bhima, presented him with a feast of delicacies, and laced the food with a highly concentrated, lethal plant extract. If we look at this simplified physiological flowchart, we can see how this toxin was designed to work. It actively suppresses the nervous system, shutting down respiratory function and rendering the victim completely unconscious before they can call for help. Once the toxin took effect, Bhima collapsed. Duryodhana and his brothers quickly bound the massive, unconscious body with thick vines and rolled him directly into the deep currents of the Ganges to hide the evidence. By committing this act in the dark, Duryodhana escalated a courtyard rivalry into high treason. The intent was clear, quiet, and lethal. But Bhima's body didn't just wash away. He sank straight down to the riverbed, entering Naagalok, the dark, aquatic underworld inhabited by serpents. The unconscious intruder immediately attracted the attention of the local wildlife. Highly venomous underwater snakes swarmed Bhima, repeatedly biting his defenseless body. This animated diagram shows Bhima's bloodstream. Instead of accelerating death, the newly introduced snake venom chemically bonded with the plant toxin, completely neutralizing each other. As these neutralized compounds cleared, energy surged back. Bhima awoke, broke his bonds, and fought the attacking serpents. The commotion drew the attention of Vasuki, the king of the Nagas. He recognized Bhima's divine lineage and ordered the snakes to stand down. Instead of punishing the intruder, Vasuki offered Bhima a biological upgrade. He allowed him to drink a mythical nectar from the underworld. This specific liquid acted as a multiplier, amplifying Bhima's already superhuman baseline strength to the equivalent of 1,000 elephants. The mechanics of Duryodhana's assassination plot completely backfired. Pushing the strongest Pandavite into a lethal environment provided the exact chemical reaction and royal encounter needed to forge an invincible warrior. Days later, the grand gates of Hastinapur opened, and Bhima walked right back into the palace. To the Kauravas, it looked like a ghost returning from the river. The nectar transformed Bhima's physiology, reinforcing his muscles and bone structure until he possessed the strength of 10,000 men. He was an evolved survivor with a skin density that basic weapons couldn't easily pierce. Seeing Bhima walk through the gates forced Duryodhana to confront a terrifying reality. His quietest and most lethal plan had failed. The boy he tried to bury was now standing before him, stronger than before. This was no longer a game. The Pandavas began traveling in groups and even sleeping in organized shifts, knowing insults had escalated to assassination. Bhima's return proved that domestic poison and simple brawling were insufficient to eliminate a royal rival. Duryodhana realized that if he couldn't kill Bhima with stealth, he would have to do it through superior martial skill and weaponry. The Pandavas, recognizing they were being hunted, sought a way to level the playing field against the Kauravas' numerical advantage. Both sides began searching for specialized instructors to turn their raw aggression into disciplined combat. The family was no longer a unit. It was two rival camps preparing for a collision. To survive, they needed more than just anger. They needed a professional teacher to organize their inevitable war. They needed Guru Dronacharya.